The blue glow of the television flickered across the living room, bathing the half-eaten pasta bowl on the coffee table in synthetic light. David barely registered the canned laughter from the sitcom he wasn't watching. His focus was elsewhere, tuned to a frequency only one person could broadcast on. His thumb traced a worn spot on the leather armchair, a small repetitive motion that did nothing to soothe the low hum of anticipation in his chest. He was waiting. It came at 11:17 p.m., a soft chime distinct from the cacophony of his other notifications. He'd assigned it a special tone, a gentle marimba melody that felt like it belonged to her. His phone, lying face down on the coaster beside him, was the anchor. It was a small black rectangle of glass and metal, but it held a universe. It was a portal. He picked it up. Her picture, a selfie taken in a bustling, sun-drenched market, smiled up from the screen. A wave of something warm and proprietary washed over him. She was a world away, tangled in a life he could only imagine, vibrant, chaotic, difficult. And in that difficulty, she'd found him, chosen him. The message from Lena was short, a string of texts that had clearly been typed in a hurry. "Hi, my love. I am so sorry to be messaging. I know you are sleeping." He wasn't, but she didn't need to know he'd been waiting. A knight doesn't mention the long hours spent polishing his armor. "It is Lola. She is not well again. The doctor says she must have medicine now or it is very bad. I am scared, David." There it was, the familiar pang of adrenaline, of purpose. He could almost feel the humid air of her small room, hear the tricycles buzzing past her window. He pictured her chewing her lip, her dark eyes wide with worry, her phone clutched in her hand like a prayer. The image was so vivid, a masterpiece of his own creation. He was the only one who could calm the storm in those eyes. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. His friend Mark's voice, a cynical echo from their last conversation at the pub, tried to intrude. "Mate, are you sure about this? It's always something." David had brushed it off then, and he brushed it off now. Mark didn't understand. He couldn't. His world was as grey as the cubicle he worked in. He didn't know what it felt like to be essential, to be the pillar someone clung to during an earthquake. David's fingers moved, crafting his response with the care of a diplomat. He didn't want to sound annoyed. He wanted to sound strong, reassuring. "I'm awake, my love. Don't be scared. Tell me what's wrong. We'll figure it out." Her reply was instantaneous, as if she'd been holding her breath. A picture followed, a blurry photo of a handwritten receipt from a pharmacy, the text in a language he couldn't read, a total scrawled at the bottom, 8,500 pesos. He quickly did the math, about $150. Not a king's ransom, but enough to be a disaster for her. It was barely a dent for him. That was the beautiful, simple magic of it. His small effort, her immense relief, a perfect, clean transaction of care. The sitcom on the television reached its crescendo, the characters resolving their trivial misunderstanding with a hug and a punchline. David didn't notice. He was already navigating to his banking app, the smooth, familiar icons a prelude to the rush of being needed. He saw himself not as he was, a man in a quiet house eating leftovers, but as she saw him, her partner, her savior, the one who, from half a world away, could make everything okay. He typed in the numbers, his reflection staring back at him from the dark screen. For a fleeting second, the face looked tired, the lines around the eyes deeper than he remembered. He ignored it, focusing instead on the feeling that was already blooming in his chest, the feeling of being the hero. He sent one last message before hitting confirm. "Don't worry, I'm sending it now. I'll always take care of you and Lola." He pressed his thumb to the screen. The money was gone. Now, he waited for the one thing he craved more than her gratitude, the validation. the proof that he had, once again, saved the day. Her reply arrived 3 minutes later, a cascade of heart emojis and effusive thanks. My hero, you have saved us again. I don't know what I would do without you, my love. Lola is sleeping now because of you. The tension in David's chest dissolved, replaced by a familiar, satisfying warmth. He was a port in her storm, a steady hand in the chaos. He slept better than he had in days, the gentle marimba of her gratitude, the last thing he heard before drifting off. The next few days were good. Lena sent him pictures of her meals, short videos of the rain-slicked street outside her window, a constant, humming current of connection that made the thousands of miles between them feel trivial. He asked about Lola. She is much better, thank God, Lena replied, quickly followed by, My cousin wants to know if you like basketball. He loves the Lakers. David smiled, answering the question, letting the subject slide. It was enough that he had solved the problem. The details were secondary. It was a quiet Tuesday night when the first crack appeared. David was scrolling idly through her social media page, a digital window shopping of her life. He liked a photo of her niece, smiled at a meme she had shared. Then he saw it. A post from 4 days ago, the same night as the frantic messages about Lola's health. It was a group photo, a selfie taken in a loud, crowded bar. Lena was in the middle, a bright, sweet cocktail in her hand, her head thrown back in a joyous laugh, her smile wide and unburdened. The timestamp was 1:30 a.m., her time, roughly 2 hours after he had sent the 8,500 pesos. The image didn't compute. It was like finding a programming error in the code of their relationship. He stared at the laughing face, the carefree posture, and tried to reconcile it with the woman who had been clutching her phone like a prayer, her eyes wide with worry. His mind raced, offering explanations. Maybe it was an old photo she had just posted. Maybe her cousins dragged her out after the crisis was over to celebrate Lola's recovery. He zoomed in on her face, searching for a trace of the fear she had so vividly described. He found none. A strange, sour feeling coiled in his stomach. It wasn't suspicion, not exactly. It was confusion, a dissonant chord in a melody he thought he knew by heart. He felt a sudden, sharp need to talk to her, to have her smooth over this wrinkle in the narrative. He typed, deleted, and retyped his message 3 times before settling on something casual. Looks like you had a fun night out. When was this? He attached the photo, a piece of evidence he hadn't decided was incriminating. Her reply came back slower than usual. Oh, that, haha. That was Saturday. My cousin Jen, it was her birthday. I had to go for a little while. Saturday, the night of the emergency. His fingers felt cold on the screen. I thought you were at the hospital with Lola. The question was out before he could temper it, blunter than he intended. Another pause. The 3 little dots of her typing appeared, vanished, and appeared again. Yes, I was. This was after. Jen cried and said I never do anything for me, so I went for one drink. I didn't even want to. I was just thinking of you and Lola the whole time. It was plausible. It had to be plausible. But it felt thin, like a story told by a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He imagined her chewing her lip again, but this time the image wasn't endearing. It was tactical. He let it go. He had to. The alternative was to pull at a thread that might unravel the entire tapestry he had so carefully woven around himself. But the feeling lingered, a low-grade hum of doubt beneath the surface. A week later, a new message arrived. No late-night panic this time. It was a simple daytime request. My love, my phone is acting so strange. The screen keeps freezing. I am worried I will not be able to get your messages. There is a sale at the mall this weekend on a new one. There was no emergency, no dying grandmother, no leaking roof. It was just a phone. The request was stripped of the drama, that usually fueled his sense of purpose. It felt different, less like a rescue and more like a line item on an invoice. He looked at her profile picture, the girl in the sun drenched market. For the first time, he didn't see a partner in distress. He saw a beautiful, smiling stranger, and he had the unsettling thought that he was simply the cost of doing business. The feeling of being her hero was fading, replaced by a colder, more transactional reality. He was paying for the connection. He stared at the message about the phone, the words floating detached from their meaning. It wasn't a crisis. There was no one to save. It was just a request, as mundane as a bill from the electric company. For the first time, he didn't feel the rush of purpose. He felt a quiet, unfamiliar resistance. He typed back a carefully neutral response. That's not good. Let me think about the best way to sort it out. I'll look into some options tomorrow. He didn't offer to send the money. He offered to think. It was a small, almost insignificant change in the script, but the effect was immediate. The three dots appeared, vanished, and then nothing. For an hour. The silence was louder than any of her frantic messages had ever been. When her reply finally came, the warmth was gone, replaced by a brittle edge. Why wait? The sale is this weekend. If I lose your messages, I will be so sad. There was no "my love," no heart emoji. The manipulation was still there, but it was stripped of its velvet glove. It was a lever being pulled, a button being pushed. He could feel the pressure, the expectation. Send the money, play your part. Something inside David, a gear that had been spinning smoothly for months, ground to a halt. He put the phone down and walked to his laptop, the half-eaten pasta from days ago still sitting on the coffee table. He didn't go to her social media page. He went to a generic money transfer site, one he didn't normally use. He typed her name and phone number into the recipient field, just to see. And there, under the recent contacts, were other names. Names of men in different cities, different countries, all linked to her account. The screen blurred. The sour feeling in his stomach turned into a cold, heavy stone. It wasn't a secret life. It was a business model. He wasn't her partner. He wasn't even her only investor. He was a line on a spreadsheet, a recurring payment in a portfolio of international donors. All the late-night messages, the declarations of love, the shared dreams of a future, they weren't a relationship. They were customer service. He thought of Mark's cynical voice. It's always something. It was never about the something. It was never about Lola's health or the leaking roof or the school fees. Those were just invoices, justifications for the withdrawal. The service being rendered was her attention, her affection, the carefully constructed illusion of his own importance. He picked up his phone one last time. He didn't have to do this, but the need for a final clean break was overwhelming. He found the photo from the bar, the one of her laughing without a care in the world. He sent it to her. His message was simple. Who paid for the drinks that night? The response was instantaneous. No more pauses. No more carefully crafted stories. That is none of your business. And then, a moment later, two final messages appeared on his screen. User is not receiving messages from you at this time. Lena, heart, has been blocked. The chat window was empty, a sterile white space where their universe used to be. The marimba tone would never chime again. He looked around the quiet living room, at the flickering television and the cold pasta. He hadn't been her knight in shining armor. He had never even been in the story. He was just the man who paid for the props. The money had stopped, and the show was over. He hadn't become the man who broke her heart. He'd just become a budget shortfall. And the most unbearable part was the sudden, crushing certainty that she wasn't thinking of him at all. She was already messaging the next name on the list. The television was off. The stale pasta bowl was gone. its residue scrubbed from the coffee table. The silence in the living room was absolute, a heavy blanket where the flicker and hum of manufactured lives used to be. For a week, David had existed in this vacuum, the absence of the gentle marimba tone a constant, deafening reminder. He thought the quiet would feel clean. It didn't. It felt empty. He hadn't just lost her, he'd lost his purpose, his nightly shot of adrenaline. He'd lost the man in the mirror who was essential, the pillar in the earthquake, the night. He was just David again, a man who worked in data entry and ate leftovers. The hero had packed his bags and left with the money. His phone chimed. For a disorienting fraction of a second, his heart leaped with a Pavlovian jolt of anticipation. His thumb twitched, ready to trace the familiar path to her message, to the next crisis, the next chance to be needed. But the notification on the screen was from his bank, a sterile, impersonal alert. Your monthly statement is now available. He stared at it, the black letters stark against the white background. There was no emergency, no damsel, just the mundane accounting of his own quiet life. And in that moment, the final piece of the architecture clicked into place. The game was never about her lies, it was about his own. He hadn't been buying her future, he was renting a better version of himself. She wasn't a con artist, she was a service provider, and he had been her most loyal customer. He finally understood. He hadn't been robbed, he had paid for a feeling, and the service was simply discontinued. The deepest, most uncomfortable truth settled in his chest, cold and sharp. The hole in his life wasn't shaped like her, it was shaped like the hero she had allowed him to be.